Looking forward to speaking to this guy. I don't know if we've ever had the pleasure of speaking, but been a fan, and I'm really excited about what he is doing with his band Primus, which is paying tribute to one of my all-time favorite bands, Rush. Joining us right now is Les Claypool. Les, pleasure to see you and talk to you. How are you?
Ahoy there. I'm good.
So we're talking about a tour here, a tribute to Kings, going out doing another run of playing the Rush album, A Farewell to Kings, in its entirety. Tell me about the experience of doing it the first time around, because obviously it was positive that you're doing it again.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty spectacular as far as an undertaking and as far as just an enjoyment level for us as musicians to play it. I actually look forward to every night, blowing through the Primus stuff and getting to the Rush album. It was so much fun to play. Plus, I got to wear silk robes.
Oh, did you rock the whole look as well?
I had to at least, right. It was kind of fake silk. It was a satiny, but yeah, I had to rock the robes. That was part of the deal.
So do you start with Primus stuff and end with Rush, or vice versa?
It's kind of a sandwich. It's the Rush sandwich with Primus bread. We do some Primus, take a little break, put the robe on, and then we come out and do the epic Farewell to Kings record.
And then you come out at the end to do a few more Primus songs. Is that the sandwich? Yes.
It usually ends with a 20 some odd minute version of Southbound Pachyderm.
So you basically, so you go in and you basically become like a Rush Superman, if you will, because you go in and you change into the robes, and then you've channeled 1977, and there you go. Let's go do Farewell to Kings.
I like that Rush Superman metaphor. I'm the only one that puts the robe on. I don't know what the hell's going on with these other guys, but I bought 4 robes, and I'm the only one that's sported them so far.
Talk about how the idea to first do this, and again, Primus is another run of doing a tribute to Kings, a pretty lengthy one too. It starts April 15th, Oklahoma City, ending June 25th in Vegas. Just go to the Primus website to see all the dates. But Les, was it you or who in the band first had the idea to do this?
Well, it was always a joke throughout the years, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do next? Oh, we should go out and do Hemispheres in its entirety. We should do Hemispheres in its entirety. Ha, 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 ha. And then one day we said, maybe we should go do Hemispheres in its entirety. And then we realized, well, first of all, you can't do Cygnus Part 2 before you do Cygnus Part 1.
True.
But just the notion of doing a Rush album in its entirety. And 2112 seemed a little too obvious. And Cygnus was always my favorite. When I was a kid, I saw Hemispheres live and the tour. And when they played Cygnus, they had the Rocinante on the big screen flying through the black hole. And it warped my little 14-year-old mind. And so I've always had a soft spot for that song. So the notion of playing that record because that song's on it was a very, very strong motivating force.
When you first thought of this idea to do this, I'm assuming, because obviously it's very challenging music to play, and you guys are in your own right great musicians. I get that, but how did the other guys respond when you said, "Hey, let's go do all of A Farewell to Kings in the middle of a Primus set"? Was everybody down with it, or did somebody have to be sold a little bit?
No, it was yes, because the thing is even when we all first got together in 1988, because I had Primus prior to that with different guys, and then they left. So Lur was no buddy of mine, and then Herb was just somebody we auditioned. But one of the things that we could connect on, because Lur had this metal background, but he was a Zappa head and a Jerry Garcia head, and Herb was into all this world music, and obviously it was obvious with the size of his drum kit that he must have listened to some Neil Peart. And me, I had all this eclectic, weird, and funk background. So we could connect on Rush. We just started playing Rush riffs, nothing in its entirety, because I don't think I ever knew any Rush songs in their entirety until this thing. But it's always been a bonding thing for us. And obviously touring with those guys and them becoming good friends of ours and whatnot. So it seemed like a very natural thing to do. It was a big undertaking. It's like saying, hey, let's climb Everest. We've climbed Lassen, we've climbed, a couple of hills around Concord. let's try Everest, so what the hell? And it was a lot of work. We've never rehearsed so much in our lives as Primus than we did doing Farewell to Kings.
Would you be doing this if Rush were still active and Neil hadn't passed away, or was this actually brought on a little bit by the fact that we don't have Rush anymore?
Well, the idea for this came about when Neil was still on the planet at that time. We were supposed to do it. We were supposed to do it a while ago, and then we took the Slayer tour, and so we postponed it, and then COVID took a chunk out of everybody's calendar, and it got postponed again. So actually, when we were originally talking about it, it was mainly just for us to do, and also, yes, a tribute to our buddies. But Neil was still around at that time when we were first talking about it.
Can you talk a little bit about you and the band's relationship with Rush over the years? You mentioned, of course, that you toured with them. Can you talk about that experience and how that that blossomed into a friendship and a connection with the guys?
Well, it was pretty surreal for young musicians. This was in the early '90s, and somebody at the record company said, "Hey, I know the Rush guys. I want to open for Rush." And it was just Roll the Bones tour, and we're like, "Duh." It was like an immediate friendship that was sparked. It was surreal because those were our superheroes when I was 14. They were my heroes. So to be a man in his mid-20s and all of a sudden just hanging out, broing down, jamming in the locker rooms on a daily basis with those guys was pretty surreal. So. But then it just became, well, they're our friends, after you get past the surreal element, and they're your bros, so.
Well, and they're easy. I'm fortunate to know those guys very well over the decades and have done a lot with them. And that's the thing about it, even from my perspective, not being a musician, doing what I do. I remember, as a kid interviewing them for the first time, maybe 30 years ago, it's like, holy shit. And then since then, of course, I'm in touch with the guys. I know them. And they're just, the thing about Rush and them as people is they're such extraordinarily nice, unassuming people that you can very quickly go from that, holy shit, there's Geddy, there's Alex, to, hey, bud, how are you? And they're always going to be those guys. But as a credit to them as human beings, they are just such regular, chill people that you can get comfortable around them very quickly.
Yeah. I'm a very fortunate human. I tell my kids this all the time. If you get to do what you enjoy for a living, you've won the game. Whether you're making $500 a night or $500,000 a night, it's true. Just the fact that you get to get up every day and go, I get to go do what I enjoy for a living. And it kind of tarnishes it a little bit, but it's still fucking awesome. So, and because of that, I've got to meet a lot of my heroes over the years. And for the most part, they've all been really wonderful, wonderful people. They've become good friends. I'm in a band with Stuart Copeland. What the hell's going on there? And he's one of my best friends. So for me, when I look at my resume, I'm very, very proud of the people I've got to work with and meet, and more than anything, befriend, So, and it's glorious when you meet your heroes, and it's extra glorious when you find out they're actually just wonderful people, So, and those guys are wonderful people.
Needless to say, Geddy, as a bass player, an influence on you, and can you talk a little bit about the impact he had as a player? Because if I'm not mistaken, I had Geddy on my show twice actually for his Big Beautiful Book of Bass that he did, which is just this, I'm sure you have it, this incredible expansive book, and you're in it, right? So obviously there's that connection. But you mentioned as a kid seeing Rush, it blew your mind. Was that an inspiration to play bass, or were you already playing bass at that point?
I think I had been playing bass for 2 months when I saw the Hemispheres show. And I bought scalp tickets and drank 3 warm Lowenbrows, threw up in the parking lot, and I was 14. And it was the greatest night of my life at that point. So it was amazing to stand there in front of the stage and see Geddy's bass as they were setting up all their equipment and just drooling over it, because that was what I wanted more than anything, was a Rickenbacker, but I just didn't have any money. But So he was a huge part. It was, I had a crappy record collection. We just didn't have any money. So, but I had friends that had these huge record collections. This one buddy of mine had all these album covers all over the wall and the ceiling. And it was amazing. We'd go and hang out at his house and smoke weed and just sit around and listen to all his records. And so I'm sitting there, Geddy Lee. Oh, Geddy Lee's the best. Oh, Geddy Lee's the greatest thing in the world. Oh my God, Jesus Christ, Geddy Lee. And he was older, and he's like, I like Geddy. Geddy's amazing, but you got to listen to this guy. And he played me some Larry Graham, and then he played me some Stanley Clarke. And so in the beginning, Geddy, my whole world was about Geddy until I discovered some of these other guys. And then I blossomed into this amalgamation of that I am now. But definitely Geddy, like when Geddy he came to my house to interview me for that book. And I said, okay, I'll do the interview, but the deal is you have to show me the proper way to play YYZ. And he did. And I've been playing it wrong all these years. So, and you sit with Geddy and just the way he phrases things and the way he fingers things, you're just like, oh my God, it's Geddy Lee. Nobody does it like that. He just, like, I was playing the right notes, but I was playing them totally different than the way he does it. So he's that's what makes him Geddy Lee. It's like, what makes freaking Hendrix sound like Hendrix. It's the way he approaches his instrument. It's not necessarily buttons he pushes and things he stomps on. So Geddy Lee is Geddy Lee.
You mentioned hemispheres a couple of times.
He's an adjective for himself.
You mentioned hemispheres a couple times, which of course is the record after A Farewell to Kings, and to many hardcore Rush fans, like the definitive prog masterpiece Rush record in their catalog. I don't know if you feel that way, but I know many do. And I know for the band, it was very challenging to make, and it stands as that record for the hardcore fans that's kind of always pointed to. So the logical question, Les, would be, you're doing a whole nother run doing A Farewell to Kings. In the forward-thinking role of the next time around, would you like to go out and tackle hemispheres and maybe do that at some future tour?
I mean, we always joke about doing that. Yes, you got to finish Cygnus. You got to play the whole Cygnus saga. But I mean, do we want to become the Rush cover band? I mean, not really. We want, you got to be careful and not be, that's the one thing is we don't want to. This is a thing that's fun for us, and it's a tribute to our bros, and we don't want to just feel like, or how people perceive us as like, hey, Neil has left the planet, the band doesn't play anymore, these guys are milking the cow. You know what I mean? So we got to be a little careful with it, but we might learn it and play it on our own. It's just around the practice room. I don't know, but there's no plans to do. But I agree with you when people say, what's your favorite Rush record? And I'm not big on favorites, but it's Hemispheres, because like most music for everybody, it represents a time in your life. It's the soundtrack. It was a soundtrack to my 14-year-old life, so.
What has Geddy and Alex said about you doing this? Have you gotten feedback from them? Have they seen clips online? Have they been to a show? What has been their response about you going out and doing this, if any?
Well, we just did we just did an interview, one of these Zoom things. Lur and I and Alex did one yesterday for a guitar magazine, and Alex hasn't seen it. He hasn't seen any of the YouTubes or anything. I don't know if Geddy has. But I text back and forth with Geddy every now and again. And I asked him before we did this a couple of years ago, hey, are you cool with us doing this? And he said, oh, certainly. Of course. Yes. And so we got their blessings to do it. But we're going to be playing Massey Hall this spring. So I would assume they will be there. I don't know. But I would assume they'll come down.
Well, when I looked at the Primus website to see all the dates,
say that on the air.
well, look, it doesn't. Les, it doesn't take a genius to figure that out. Anybody who's a Rush fan knows they're from Toronto, and that's a legendary venue, and All the World's a Stage was recorded there, and what have you. But when I looked at the dates on the Primus site, I was looking to see, hey, where can I catch one of these shows? And I'm looking at, and that one jumps out like, ta-da, Toronto, Massey Hall. Looks like it's May 14th. That one's just like, it's not, but it almost looks like it should be pulsing and illuminated around all the other dates, just because that's the holy ground right there. So one would think that maybe if it's ever going to happen, that would be the spot.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
Was there even almost like, it's almost like, I know when this next run of dates got announced, there was almost like a thing because they're going to Canada on this run. You're crossing the border into the hallowed ground of Rush. So there was already excitement that you were just even taking this to Canada. And then obviously the Toronto stop jumps out hugely, because there are other stops throughout Canada too, we should mention.
Well, wait till we do the Stompin' Tom Connors tribute album, because then the Canadians will really be fired up. I mean, we'd always planned on doing all this. It all fell apart when the world turned upside down. So we're just playing catch up at this point. You know, we had to cancel 5 shows on this last run, 2 because of hurricanes and 3 because I got COVID. So, these are odd times.
Yeah, no doubt. A couple more things and I'll let you go. I wanted to ask you, for you personally, you mentioned, of course, Cygnus, but is there another track on A Farewell to Kings when you do this that for you personally stands out that you love playing? I mean, if you look at this record, there's really only one quote unquote hit on the record that everybody knows. That would be Closer to the Heart. The rest, you have to be a Rush fan to know these songs, which clearly you are. I am. Many in your audience probably are.
Hey,
but is there another highlight?
How can you go through life not know? How can you go through life not knowing Xanadu? It's like, oh my God, it's such.
But there's plenty that don't in your audience. I'm sure they do, but in the big scheme of things, you don't hear Xanadu on the radio ever.
I know I'm joking more than anything, but but that's what makes Rush fans Rush fans. It's like we were the guys that it was like being a Trekkie or something in high school. It's like. Very few people got it, but the ones that got it were like, bonded by Bytor or what, you know what I mean? Like,
so what's the reaction from the Primus fans in the audience? They're all in on this. When you do Cinderella Man, they're all in on it. They know it. They're like, yeah, this is cool. Or is there some, do you sense there's a part of the Primus base that when they come, they're like, yeah, let's get to the Primus songs? Or is everybody down with this in the audience?
It's like anything else. You can please all the people some of the time and some of the people all the time, or whatever Lincoln said. So some people are there to see the Primus, but there's some people that are there just to see the Rush thing, and but for the most part, it's this amalgamation of folks, if that's the proper word to be using. But I think most people would be bummed if we only did the Rush record because they're Primus fans, So
sure.
It's like I said, it's a Rush sandwich. Where's the bread?
And Farewell to Kings, at least in its studio version, is roughly 38 minutes long. It's not exceedingly long. 6 songs, even though there's a couple long ones on there. So it does leave a ton of time for you to do Primus in front of and behind it, unless you jam stuff out. I don't know. Do you extend it beyond its natural running time a lot?
No, we do. That was the glory of, look, I love going and seeing bands that would jam it out. I love it. Play it different every time. I love it. But that was the thing about Rush that you go to the show, every fill, everything was in its place. It was a scripted, orchestrated piece of music every time. It was amazing. So, it's like anything else. One night you want sushi, the next night you want some burgers. And if you want to see some precise, amazing playing, you would go see Rush.
Everybody check out Primus, another run of a tribute to Kings, which we're talking to Les Claypool about right now. Again, the next run of dates is quite long. Kicks off April 15th, Oklahoma City, and it runs through June 25th, ending in Las Vegas. You can see all the dates online. Les, before I let you go, above and beyond these shows, anything you can share with the Primus fans in the audience about your band and new music, anything else you want to share that's coming up?
I mean, actually, this new, I've been posting, and I'm an Instagrammer guy now, which is a bizarre thing. But I got this new rehearsal space, and we did the whole Rush thing there. Now we're recording stuff there. So we just recorded a few songs. So we're hoping we're going to release these things before the next tour. So there'll be a few new Primus songs for people to chew on. And one of them is 13 minutes long. So there you go.
For real? Is it really?
Oh, yeah.
So would these just be single releases, or is it a goal towards a full record at some point?
You just mentioned Farewell to Kings was 36 minutes long, and that's the way it should be. When we got into the 80s and CDs and people started making these records that are 20 songs long, it's like, it's too much, and we're at the point, and it's wonderful when you're a young band and you're building your base and people are, but when you're guys like us, people want to hear a couple new songs. They don't want to hear us going out and playing, and they want to hear the old tunes. They want to hear, that's what they want to see. We have so much of our catalog that people are still going, how come you don't play this? Why don't you play that? So we figured, let's feed in just a few. So, and the way the world is now with the Spotify's and people, the way people acquire music, how many people are actually wanting these long form records or recordings anymore? So I don't know. We thought it was more fun for us to just focus on getting together and writing and really polishing and perfecting a few songs than it was trying to come up with a whole album full of stuff.
Well, I as a music fan, I would think a lot of Primus fans would like your fan base, I would think would be all in if you gave them a lengthy, fully conceived album. But then again, you can still make new music and still deliver a record that's 35, 40 minutes long. I mean, a lot of bands still do it, but yes, I agree with you. Some of this stuff, even today, 2 records of an hour each, it's a lot, especially with the attention span, which is pretty limited from a lot of people these days. So I see both sides of it, but as an old school guy myself, there's nothing better to me than getting an actual physical package with every track in a fully conceived, sequenced record. I mean, that journey from last track to first track to last track is something I still love.
I hear you. But we didn't have it in us.
But it could come at some point. You're not ruling out ever doing a record again, right?
No. But we could accumulate into something. But at this slice of time that we had to do something before the next tour, I just wanted to do one song. I wanted to do one long epic song, which we did. And then we thought, well, shit, we're going to put this on vinyl. We got to have something on the other side. So we did 2 other songs. So the idea at this point, whether it happens or not, is I want to do a 10-inch, and because they sound better the more, all that, right? The longer.
Yeah, the bands are further apart. Yeah.
Yes, correct. So we want to do a 10-inch and release the big track, and then have the other 2 tracks on the other side. So that's the notion at this point.
And as far as playing live, you referenced this a second ago, opening for Slayer. I mean, Primus is a band that can really adapt to any situation, proven by the fact that you can go from opening for Rush to playing with a band like Slayer, which back in the day, having seen those guys almost since the beginning, I mean, it was a thing where nobody got over opening for Slayer. You were just, even if you were a great band, it was a thing to get that band off the stage and people just chanting Slayer, Slayer. That's dissipated some in the last 15, 20 years of them touring. It's gotten a little more reasonable, but it was a spot a lot of people didn't want for a very long time. How did Primus do on a Slayer tour?
I mean, it went great. I would get them chanting Slayer, actually. I would say Slayers come during Tweakers, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, that's the thing, is it was the same way with Rush. I mean, I saw Rush, I don't know how many times, and it was hard to be the opening band for Rush. But for us, it worked out very well. But it's also with Primus. It's like taking the opening spot with Primus can be tough sometimes too. So we tend to pick people that we personally are into, so we feel like maybe we're turning people on to something interesting. But the Slayer thing was a lot of fun. I mean, we got to I think my favorite thing about it was getting to know and hang out with Al from Ministry. I'd met him over the years, but to really just kind of hang with him, we had a good time. So.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. Well, listen, it's great to talk to you. I appreciate a few minutes here today. And again, everybody check out Primus, A Tribute to Kings tour, Farewell to Kings by Rush in its entirety with Primus tunes before and after it. And again, the dates are all online. Les, thank you so much. I hope to catch one of these shows. I'm really looking forward to seeing it eventually. And all the best to you. Keep us posted on what you have going on.
All right. Thank you very much.
कैसे भूल पैबू जान बगिया उतलैया हो अचके में आके पकड़ल हमर बहिया हो कैसे भूल पैबू जान बगिया उतलैया के